Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
Welcome back to the Retire with Peace podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dave Zaegel. I really debated what to title this episode because I wanted the title to be something like Stay Aggressive with Your Investments. But I know that all the compliance folks and regulators would lose their mind if I put that out there. That is kind of the premise here. I want people to stay a little bit more aggressive, take on a little bit more risk, and get that growth in their investments, even in retirement. Here's the important point to that, though. It's not just about being wild and aggressive and doing whatever. It's understanding that in order to be aggressive, in order to take a little bit more risk, we have to put the proper controls in place first. Then we can talk about taking on more risk and being more aggressive as we go through retirement and continue our investment journey there. It's really no different than anything else in life. Let's say you're trying to go rock climbing or rappelling, or you're trying to fly a plane. Those are inherently more risky things, but what do you do before you do those things? Well, you put the safety items in place. If you're rappelling down a mountain, you got to make sure the harnesses and all the ropes and latches, I don't even know the proper terms, but you make sure that everything is secure if you're going to go rappelling down this mountain. And when you do that, what would usually be a pretty dangerous activity is actually really safe because you've put these safety items in place first. Same thing with flying a plane. There's always risk of flying in a plane, but they also have a million safety checks on the checklist. And here's what you do in these scenarios. And even when you're up in the air, here's how you handle safety. So you can be more risky, be more aggressive, especially if you've put the proper safety items in place first. We talk about this all the time on this podcast, where we want to have at least 5 years of income set aside out of the market, either in individual bonds, CDs, cash, money markets. Any of those are fine options. We want that set aside out of the market, at least the next 5 years of income. Why? Well, that's our safety. The stock market can bounce up and down and go crazy, but we've taken at least 5 years of income out of the market. That's already done. And therefore, the rest of the money can be invested more aggressively. So there's the key. First is setting that safety up and making sure that's in place. The next piece is having discipline and rules around the more aggressive investments, the long-term focused investments. A couple examples. Well, I can't get into specifics because compliance will let me, but we had a pretty good year investment-wise last year. We've had several good years now. And there were some investments last year that were individual stocks. I know we're weird. We use individual stocks. That's not normal for most advisors either, but we use individual stocks. And there were some that doubled and one that even tripled in the course of just several months last year, which is great. But again, we have the safety set up already, so we can be a little bit more aggressive in certain areas, not massively aggressive. We're not talking about doing anything crazy, but we can take some shots in small amounts. And we had a couple that, like I said, doubled and tripled. What did we do? We sold them. We're not crazy. Maybe they could have doubled and tripled again, possibly. Who knows? But my goodness, if you get an investment that doubles over, a 6-month period or a 4-month period or whatever, sell it. Take the win. Even if you don't sell all of it, sell a substantial chunk of it. The point of being more aggressive is not to go crazy and have a lottery ticket. A great result is something doubling in that short a period of time. Take the win. That is also risk management. That is also proper discipline. Don't just cross your fingers and hope it does that again. Have some discipline, take some profits. And in fact, a lot of times when we have big gains, whether it's in an individual stock or just overall the market goes up, have the discipline to take some of that money out of the stock market and maybe add a sixth year or a seventh year of income that is set aside outside the market. If you have these things in place, if you've already taken off 5 years of income and set it aside, and you're willing to take profits as things go well, and perhaps even set aside more money for safety, those are the things that allow you to be more aggressive. And you can do things like pick out some individual investments, even if it's in small quantities, and take a shot. Because those small quantities, if you're doing it in a relatively small percentage, for example, sometimes if there's maybe a more risky stock that we're buying, we may only buy it for 1.5 or 2% of a total account value. So that if something does go wrong with that investment, it's not killing us. It's not really crushing our account. But if it goes really well, and like the examples I used, the loose examples I used, it doubles or triples in a short period of time. My goodness, that's great. That can have a nice impact on the returns of the account overall. So you realize that this one investment is a little bit more risky, but we're doing it in small quantities and we've already set up all of our safety and controls and we have our discipline in place. When you do all those things, you can take some more risk or be a little bit more aggressive with some investments in order to try to get a better return and better growth over time. So that's the emphasis today. I wanted to focus on trying to get everybody to still focus on growth, even in retirement, because that really helps just grow the money and give you more money and more income in retirement. That growth is really important. You still need to grow the money, but you cannot do that without proper safety, without proper discipline and rules in place. So that way, when things go poorly, you've already set the safety aside and you have that there. And you can let the stock market bounce back over time while you still have, again, at least 5 years of income. We need that safety. And we also need the discipline that as the stock investments, anything that's in the market goes up, we take some of that profit, shift it over to the safety side, because we know that as awesome as that stock market has been in recent years and just recent history, there are going to be times like in 2022, it was a bad year. Obviously, 2008, terrible year. There's going to be these times, probably multiple times in your retirement, where the stock market's not going to behave like we want it to. And that's okay. That is actually totally fine if we've set up our safety in advance and have that ready to go. We can stay more aggressive with the stock market, knowing that it's there for the long term, and it has been great long term for the past 100 plus years. We're setting that for growth for the long term. Let's make sure we have our safety in place. Those two things together are very powerful for retirement investment planning.